88.3 to Saint Ronnie Love on the station where you never know what you hear next. Where I be playing your favorite hip hop and R&B slow jams. I have another great show for you guys. Today, me and my guests will be talking about why don't my white friends talk about race. Two students from your very own Siena College, Christian Henderson and Chardaine Franklin, will be joining me today on the show to talk about that. We'll be talking about diversity on campus, power, privilege, race, and presence. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But like always, we're gonna keep the music flowing and going. Here's Kodak Black, Tunnel Vision on the station where you never know what you hear next.
Presence, right?
88.3 to Saint Ronnie Love on the station where you never know what you hear next. Kodak Black, Tunnel Vision. Now, going to introduce my guests, Christian Henderson and Chardaine Franklin. How you doing, guys? Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime. So, now we're talking about why don't our white friends talk about race. Now, I'm gonna start it off with the question, Christian. I'm gonna ask you first. Why don't you think the black students who have friends on campus, white friends, don't talk about race?
The black friends or the white friends?
Like the white friends. Why don't the white friends talk about race?
That's a good question, because I had a few white friends early on in the year, and I just think that they don't talk to us about race because maybe they think it's a thing of the past, and even when they're confronted with issues that prove that race is still an issue, they tend to think that it's not me, like I have you as a friend, so like I'm not part of the problem. So if I'm not part of the problem, like it's not mine, or like mine to talk about.
Okay. How about you, Chardaine?
I really do believe that for the white students on campus who are uncomfortable with having conversations about race, it's really a comfort thing. There's, I think, from my experience, some type of guilt or assumption that you're responsible for racism or past history. And so in having those conversations, you have to take on some of that responsibility. And that's what restricts them from being able to comfortably talk about race or their privilege or how much power they're entitled to.
Exactly. Because I was, for some reason, you could walk around campus and see how like some of the students don't see the privilege they have or to see the privilege that they're granted from being here at Siena College. Because like this, like for instance, if you was to get in trouble, like there's a chance and there's a very high chance that just because you're black and he's white, y'all may have the same charges of like whatever housing violations, but there's a possibility his reprimand or whatever consequences he get will be less than the black students.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, but I do think that it's a problem nationwide, and it was a study that was shown with teachers in general and strangers, that whenever they see a black man or a black student doing the same thing, or like being loud or yelling, they'll be a lot harsher on him than with the white kid. They'll more coddle him, and I think that kind of trend is now in terms of like white people now, they just receive the benefit of the doubt.
So how can we on Siena make it easier for our students to talk about race?
Well, first I'd like to backtrack a little bit and say that I agree with Christian in saying that there's some type of entitlement for white students when they consequently do something that's wrong and have to be reprimanded. But I think that all of these things are systemic. The way that people think is generational. It's history ingrained in these people. It's how they were raised. It's what they experience. It's what they've been exposed to. So, in a part of that, in making those decisions, you think about history. You think about what you learned and what you've experienced. And a part, I guess, on Siena's part, what they're doing to make that better is putting someone in a position who, I guess, identifies closely to the students who might be getting into trouble in some regards. So, you have to see progress for what it's for, and I don't think change happens overnight. So if that was their way of going about it, it's a step, I guess. I don't know if it's in the right direction per se, but I guess it gives students the opportunity to feel comfortable enough to talk about where they went wrong with someone who they can relate to, and not feel like they're being punished harsher than someone else who's not of their skin tone or race. So I mean, if you're giving them credit where credit is due, that's a step.
Now, you had an event where it took place inside Maloney Great Room, all the way in the back, and it was about why don't my white friends talk about race. And I want to say I attended. It was a good meeting. Everything ran smoothly. You had everything written down, blackboard out, and everything, and it was a good discussion. But the problem was that there weren't any white students. There was only one, and in terms of my minorities and who were there, it was pretty much the same people, except for I want to say about 3 or 4 who I haven't really seen like that, but they was there and gave their opinion on how they feel. So how can we reach out to the white students and get them to events like this?
I've been trying for a long time. I've been working for the Diversity Coaching Center for 30 now, and last year, sadly. But it's like really trying to talk about it is just so hard to talk to white students about race when you're so passionate, and because it obviously affects me directly.
Yeah,
and exactly, and it's like when I'm talking to someone who doesn't really care what I'm saying, it's like they see through me.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because
I'm like, why you even bother to even
exactly
have a conversation with them?
I don't necessarily think it's a bad question. I really think it starts with making people feel comfortable enough to have that conversation. And being in a space where you don't feel like you're automatically going to be attacked, because it's human nature to put up a defense mechanism when you feel like you're threatened. So if you're put in an environment where the title is "Why My White Friends Don't Talk About Race," and like you're one of those people and it applies to you, it makes you uncomfortable. So there has to be some line of safety where you feel like you're in an environment where you're comfortable enough to discuss maybe where you went wrong and not having this conversation, or why you restricted yourself enough where like you feel supported almost by your black friends who you haven't talked about this with in a while. So I think in speaking to Christian's experience, he said he's been at it for 3 years. It's all about your approach. Like if you've been doing it 3 years, then I hope that all 3 years it was different. Like the approach has to change, because people change, things change, and in order to like accommodate different people, you have to change your approach. And I really do think it starts with creating some line of safety where they feel comfortable talking to you. I really do think that most students, specifically if we're going to be general, all of us are privileged to be getting educated at an institution, a private one to be exact, and to be able to afford to attend an institution and be educated, because around the world we know that that's not possible for everyone. So if we're talking about everyone's privilege, education is one that we share in common. Now if we're going to differentiate the two between, I guess, ethnic students and students who are Caucasian, I would say they're definitely privileged in regards to, I guess, just how they identify. Like they can walk around a little bit carefree, move with some interesting actions, and not really worry about the repercussions. And I feel like a part of that is the fact that they're entitled in terms of finances. Like, I mean, there are some, I'm not going to generalize and say all, but there definitely are some who may be in the same boat as some of the ethnic students where they have financial issues as well. But for the most part, in greater numbers, there are non-ethnic students who don't struggle financially. And I feel like with that privilege, they feel entitled with everything else. Because, I mean, in America, capitalism, money is power, so they feel powerful.
Exactly. There's a lot of power on this campus.
Yeah, I definitely feel that they have the privilege to have the choice of not seeing race. They can come into...
It could be a blind eye to them.
Exactly.
Ray Charles to the bullish.
Yep, they can go their entire college career having friends that look like them, and just not ever having to see color for the most part. And I was telling, as I told you before we came here, I was doing a count, and there's around, that I know of, 16 black men as seniors in my class. So like just by that stat alone, it just goes to show us how much we really don't have as much support as our white counterparts may have. Exactly. They obviously have a lot of support and people that can connect with them, but we don't. Like we are here, and it's like we have to kind of not carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, but we do have to be mindful that we're living the dream of our grandfather, of even our parents. So like it's a lot more pressure. We're just not going through college because we're entitled to it.
Like a legacy for us.
Exactly. We have to like do the thing, exactly. And it's really hard because like when you're trying to find that support of other black men or other black woman from you, there's not many to pick from. So it's like it's not like you're alone, but you're just not as supported as some of the privileged white students are.
So Is that a problem that we only have 16 black male students graduating from Siena College?
Well, I really do feel like it depends on how you look at it. Well, first of all, congratulations to those 16 black men, because that's a stride. You're 16
Absolutely.
successful black men who have a bachelor's degree, so I think that's a positive thing.
Right.
But in terms of recruitment efforts, I mean, it's obvious that Siena recruits in areas where tuition will get paid. At the end of the day, college is a business.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it's an experience. For them, it's a business. It's a day-to-day. It runs like a business. And when you use statistics like that, you have to take into consideration things that affect those statistics. So how many people transferred in, transferred out? The retention rate, I think, is like 74%. So you have to account for those people who transfer out. Did black students transfer out? For what reason did they transfer? Was it a cost factor? Was it interest? Did they change majors? You know, like, you have to take into account some of these things. And you have to be honest with yourself. If Siena was to come to your hood and recruit at your high school, would black students come?
I want to say Siena's fault because there are things as a college campus that you can do to make the school feel welcoming to black
Absolutely.
students. Because, you know, it being my 4 years here and seeing students do college tours here, black students do college tours here, you don't have to ask them no questions. You can just walk and look at them, and you can just tell that they don't feel like they belong here. You know,
Right.
they just walking around. Their parents is here with them, you know. So it's just, that's a factor right there. Then, you know, events on the campus play another factor also. You know, not being able to relate to the black students on campus, you know. Hey, we have T-Pain this year for Siena Fest. I mean, it's better than Woody Allen, whoever
We
that.
had Kid Ink.
They left the concert. They left in the middle of the concert. That is terrible. Kidding. That is sad. You know. So they have to do a better job in, you know, reaching out to the students and making them feel comfortable. And they use the Franciscan values as a crutch, the diversity and the integrity. So where can we go from that as a campus?
I definitely like to speak on what you were saying. Although Siena obviously is targeting affluent white neighborhoods, it's as if, how are they preparing their students to go out into the world where there are racial issues? It's like when you attract students from similar neighborhoods, it's like you're keeping them in a bubble that they won't be as prepared to handle diverse issues upon graduation. And like, to talk about like my whole like white friends and race, there are trends to race that can be seen from the public view. So white people obviously have the opinion that a lot of black people, they're either on a sports team. Obviously, like if you look at our ball team, it's a lot more black than white. And also there's a lot like many black people that the white students know are either actors, actresses, rappers, or ball players. And it is a trend. So for a white person to acknowledge that many of the black people that they see are in the public eye, that's a trend. So they're not asking like the hard questions, like, why is it that most black people want to be these type of people in society? Why aren't they in school? Why aren't they with me?
Absolutely.
Why not? And it's like trends like this that they don't like. They know that race is obviously an issue. So why aren't they actively addressing it towards the few black students that we have here?
What you gotta say, Sade? I see you try to take the mic.
Because you know Christian is a little long-winded. So
He was long-winded too, Sade.
You know, it's good conversation. You know, that's what we gotta do. We gotta keep it interesting. We gotta let them listen.
Because I disagree with you when you talk about outreach. Like I was saying before, realistically, if Siena went and recruited in these schools, would they retain these students? Because when you think about it, Siena is not trying to, in some regards, set people up for failure. How many of y'all have known people who have transferred because they couldn't afford to go here?
Facts. We just had a student leave here, and he was saying that
that's
financial
real
problems.
life. Like, I really have a friend who was supposed to be graduating in my class, and he's back at home going to a community because he couldn't afford to go here. Realistically, they are targeting students who can afford to go here. Is
Which
that a
happens to be
smart?
white?
No, is that a smart business decision? Absolutely. Should they recruit more black students? Yes. But are there black students who can afford to attend Siena? Minus HEOP, because you target that program for being what brings diversity. Minus, I don't know, outside scholarships in some regard. Could they afford it? No. Realistically speaking, no. The average person probably couldn't. So, like, you have to be realistic in who you recruit. And in preparing people for real life, I mean, as much as that's college's responsibility, from a diversity standpoint, are colleges entitled to do that? Do you think so?
When they have their DOORS value, the D in DOORS stands for diversity, and I feel that
In mindset.
And I feel that Siena uses a cop out because they don't have much diversity of color. They have to say it's a thought and a mindset.
Exactly, and we gonna get more to that. But we got some music. We gonna keep the music flowing and going. Here's 2 Chainz featuring Quavo and Gucci Mane. Good Drink on the station when you never know what you hit next.
You just as long-winded as I am, Sade. Don't play.
Am I really though?
You are, literally. I was writing mad stuff while you was talking.
Because you was writing fast.
You spoke one time. I spoke twice. You spoke. I know you spoke twice and one time. You spoke more than me. You spoke more than me.
You was writing fast.
I think that a good question to ask is what are the consequences of not talking about race?
88.3 to Saint Ronnie Love on the station when you never know what you hit next. 2 Chainz, Good Drink featuring Gucci Mane and Quavo. Now, let's get back to the topic. Why don't my white friends talk about race? Now, before we get out of here, Christian brought to my attention of something that I should ask him. You know, I feel like it's a good question also is, what are the consequences of not talking about race? So,
I think that the consequences of not talking about race is repeating history. And I think that what I really truly believe is that white students, they have, well, white people in general of the newer generation, they have woken up or have been born into a sense of forgetfulness or historical amnesia because it wasn't them who actively oppressed black people. It's as if like that issue was a thing of the past. Mm-hmm. But they're not gonna address that. There were policies that were put in place 40 years ago, 50 years ago that were meant to keep people like them in power and keep people like them in a receiving hand of wealth. And by not talking about it, it's as if you are reaping the benefits of these policies, and you're not trying to make it equal. Mm-hmm. It's like you're just ignoring the problem by choosing to. And I think that if you continue to do that, then like the problem of racial justice will never ever be solved because no one's saying, you know what, I am living a policy that was meant to only benefit me. This is a problem. Like I need to fix it. No one's like, not many people are actively saying that.
Sade?
I definitely agree with you in saying that history does repeat itself. I think another consequence would have to be no change, like no action. Because I really do think that it starts with a conversation, but then you have to be about action steps. What happens after a conversation? Because as much as we like to say, you know, maybe here at Siena, a lot of white people don't like to talk about privilege and power, but there are people in the world who acknowledge that they are privileged, that they have power, and that there are systemic things in place that allow them to be successful and not fail. And so for those people who constantly talk about these things, what happens then? Like, all right, they talked about it, that's nice, but then what? Like, where do you go after the conversation? It's more than just a conversation. It's action steps. So one of the consequences of not talking about it is then not creating a plan to fix the issue that presents itself.
But how do we fix this, though? Because before my freshman year, it was 89% white, and it was only 2.67% white or something like that. I mean, black.
I remember. How do we fix it?
Well, they did do a good job, though. Over the last 3 years, this is down 10%, and I want to say, well, African American, but Hispanics went up more than we did. Yeah. Basically.
It's a very loaded question, how do we fix it? Because I feel as if Siena College needs to acknowledge that there is a cultural difference between races. Why is that? Why is there a cultural difference between races? And it's like, I feel like once they start to employ more faculty that are of color, they can begin to attract and retain more students of color, because the trick is really not to get black students of color in. It's them seeing faculty and other administrators in high positions that would want them to stay enrolled at Siena. So to fix it, I want to say they just really have to make the culture of Siena not white. Like white culture is very strong here, and I feel that once they have more administrators who can establish a very diverse culture, they can begin to attract more of those lower numbers.
So Christian wants to de-whiteify Siena College.
Not
De-whiteify.
but just
That's
diversify.
I honestly think the solution to there's no one solution to the problem, but if I could generate one, I would say that it starts with people like us. And in having conversations with prospective students and giving them perspectives on like my experience at Siena, I think that helps them understand that yes, the culture is still developing here at Siena, but that doesn't mean that there's not open opportunities for you to do great things. I want you to understand how big of an opportunity you get when you're amongst people of power and privilege. You understand? Now, if this school was predominantly black and we went to a HBCU, for instance, because that's what people tend to compare our institution to, because there's a population of, like a large population of black people, white people are the minority. But the difference is those colleges have further connections that enable those black students to be successful. Here, it's a different story. We're amongst powerful and privileged white students. And guess what? If you become besties with Little Betty and Little Bill, they're going to get you that internship. You know what I'm saying? And that's not something you could get everywhere.
It's not about what you know, but who you know.
It's about who you know. And so when you eliminate those numbers and those power and those people in power with privilege, you're taking away opportunities from yourself too. You taking food off your own plate. It's really about getting them to understand their privilege. It's not about eliminating their presence. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to be a shared presence.
All about basically educating.
Yeah, that's
educating
what it's about.
Educating ourselves just as much as we educate them.
Yeah.
Because if we educate ourselves and with our history and everything that's going on and how to approach the situation, because there are steps and ways where you have black activists who know how to press the situation and come forth to somebody who is white and, you know, belittle them, but do it in a intellectual way.
Yeah. Now, what I'm saying is not to take the white students out of Siena. I'm just saying add more, pepper to the sofa. It sounds crazy, but
Pepper to the sofa.
A little more pepper. It sounds
a little adobo.
Listen, guys. Hopefully nobody take that offensively. Sorry. But I think that speaking as a black man, it is very important for me to just not be prepared for the white world, because I also need to be supported by other black men and by also other men of color and employees and employers of color, so they can help me to go out into this world as a black man, because I just can't come to Siena and be best friends with Mary and just work at her dad's all-white company. Like, how is that bringing my people up? Personally, for me, like, I want to be a face where I can say, you know what, I don't have to play this white men's game all the time to get my black people to a place of power. I can, play my game too, because I have a lot of assets to bring to the table.
All right. And Sade, anything you want to add before we wrap it up in here?
Well, I want Christian to show me these statistics because I'm sick of the generalizations. That's
what?
But I mean, to close off, I want you to think about the diversity that's here currently, because when you mention staff, I think maybe there's not as many black people per se, but there's ethnic people. We got the foreigners, we got the Indians, we got the Japanese, the Asian, and you forget that's the part of diversity too. Those people are marginalized too. Those people are minorities too. So is it that you want to see more black people specifically, or do you want to see more marginalized people? Because if we're talking about equality, I would like to see more marginalized people in general.
Absolutely. I don't think that's
Drops
great.
mic.
I don't think that's a great. You feel like she fronted on you just now.
That's
a great way to end the show.
Show's over.
I don't know, but
Chris, I love your enthusiasm.
Being a black man, I would like to see more Dr. Kings. It's
true,
Ronnie, true or false, Ronnie? At the end of the day, like my grandfather was affected. My great grandfather was affected. It's like I want to have the opportunity to have a role model that looks like me to help me fulfill my dreams and to fulfill the dream of the slave. Like what the great late Maya Angelou said, I am the hope and dream of the slave.
There we go.
Absolutely.
And on that, drops the mic. Poop.
Drops the mic. That's another great show for you. Thank you, Christian, and thank you, Sade, for your topic and this discussion today of why my white friends don't talk about race. Stay tuned for next week and a new coming show. Ronnie Love, I'm out, baby.